Now we are starting the final revision of our IELTS task 1, task 2, the speaking, and this recording will help you in getting 8.5 band for all these tasks. Okay, that's what our target is. So let's start doing it. So now let me just show you about this sheet particularly. So this sheet is starting with a word phrase. If you can see here, word phrase to task 1, we have a table content where we're going to talk about some vocabularies. We're going to talk about essential words for describing the trends. We're going to talk about the right way to present the figures, describing the map, and describing the figures. The reason why we're doing this, because these will, number one, it help in giving us some vocabulary directions for doing the task 1, and then later it will going to help us in doing different parts of our IELTS speaking exam also, and somehow it is going to help in task 2. And the reason why we're starting with task 1 is because it's too specific. It don't have that much room in doing the things, and this task will finish in 15 minutes. But in those 15 minutes, if we give it the right content, we will be able to get 8.5 band in this one. Okay, so that's why we're going to do that. So if you can see clearly, there are verbs to open an introduction. We start with that, and then we talk about different to present the new set of data, 6 ways to make comparison, writing overview, and then we go further up, linking word, age groups, time. We talk about describing the part of the whole, describing that forecast. We will talk about describing increase here. Okay, and then we will talk about different verbs to use here, and then we talk about how to describe the decline part, and how to talk about to reach high and the lowest point we to talk about here. Okay, and there are some words which we can use for that, so that's what we're going to discuss about it. Describing the fluctuation, stabilizing, trend. So these are something very common, and mostly this will come in your IELTS task 1. And then how to write the figures. Okay, writing figure, that is very important, because if you don't do it, you will not get the band. And rounding numbers, once, twice, thrice. So the thing is, because the person who is checking your task 1 is also checking your task 2, and if they don't do that, if you don't do this thing properly, the chances are very high that you will lose the marks, and that is the reason you have to do these things. Okay, so now describing the map number, because see, in task 1 is very important that you are reporting the figure, you are supporting your figures with your assertion, with your sentence. So using the right word, showing the figures, you have to show that, and how to link them, we are going to discuss it now. Okay, that's how task number. And then if the location, describing the changes, also sometime really it comes, but it comes for sure, it comes. Okay, and then describing a diagram. Okay, that is what is going to come, and then finally linking the word. Okay, that's how it come. And then there are some recap vocabulary for task 1, which we're going to just recap, help you recap that. Okay, and then this thing we're going to, so now we start with our task 1, and we finish this one within 10 minutes, and then we'll proceed with that. So now let me just make it a little bit broader for you so that it's easy, and then you can do. So we start with first thing first, which is our vocabulary. Okay, we'll talk about the types of the vocabulary. Okay, we'll talk about the types of tasks, 4 verbs, open introduction. We will talk about writing an overview, presenting the new sets of data, and then 6 ways to make the comparison. Talk about the age groups, time periods, describing the parts of the whole, describing a forecast. Okay, we're going to talk about this in vocabulary. Then we're going to talk about some essential words for describing the trends. Okay, it will be increase, decrease, and then highest and the lowest point, fluctuating, stabilizing, and trend. And then right way to present the figure, because that's also important. Okay, writing the numbers, the event. Please remember one thing, whatever we are studying is not only for task 1, it will be used somewhere in speaking part 3. This will be used for in writing task also, so just keep that in mind. So starting with task 1 is very important. Rounding number, once, twice, thrice, to half, double, triple, these things we have to do. We are also going to talk about this describing a map. Okay, then reporting time, compression, there's different compass points we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about common map elements, describing a location changes. Okay, describing a diagram, and which are linking words. Then this will end it. Okay, so let's start doing it. Okay, and then this is the very important thing. The thing is, in this particular guide you're going to study, and why this only, there are multiple books in the market, is that it's basically compilation of must known words and phrases which we must know for our IELTS examination, and their typical situation where we encounter different types of IELTS writing task 1. So how to open introduction, how to make comparison, how to present figures, we are going to discuss trend, and to name but a few. Okay, so this complex word achieve is accompanied by the example. So now this complex word, you will memorize it, and you will example will be given, will be used by you from the question which is given to you, because question is not going to repeat. And there, so basically you will learn here how to different ways to use the same word, and that is what is our idea. So learning new words to widen your vocabulary is helpful but not sufficient. Okay, so we are new words, but memorizing the phrases, sentence structures to use your vocabulary more flexibly. Okay, that's what is the idea. Okay, that's going to help you, and this is the underlying principle which you have to remove. So yes, you're going to memorize the phrases and you're going to memorize the sentence structure, but to use it flexibly. Okay, we're going to use it in a multiple way, multiple directions, so that this will be helpful for you to do that thing. Okay, let's start with the vocabulary and common situations. So for that type of task, remember, so main type of task in IELTS academic Tyson and is basically a pie chart, line chart, diagram. So you have it, you have bar chart, and then you also have a diagram or the process where different steps are shown in the figure. Then you will have the maps from before and now. There could be a table talking about that. Okay, so these are some types of chart which you already know. 4 verbs to open an introduction. Basically now we will start about how to open introduction. So I'll task 1, start with the words. For example, the chart, map, diagram shows, but only shows it will not be enough, so you have to come up with something which is better than that. So you should paraphrase the task in introduction. So that's very important for you to do it. You should paraphrase it, and before you will find the 4 best verbs to use in the introduction along with some examples and structure. So this is the first thing you're going to learn, which is to memorize the phrases, and so that you will be able to use it flexibly. So the word is illustrates. The chart illustrates, map illustrates, diagram illustrates. Okay, that's it. So the bar chart illustrates the percentage of the people using different means of transport in the London. So it could be talking about different bar candles are there, and they are talking about different types of transport there, what different population is using, and also try to have a generalized word with that. So the thing is, remember the trick. Let me just remind you the trick. The trick is, first you have to just see the chart diagram, and then you have to imagine that you are in a conference room and where you're talking to the different department people. You are just trying to show everyone what the chart behind you in the slide explains. You're just talking about that slide. You're not sharing any interpretation, analysis, or nothing. No, you're just explaining the chart so that all the department people who are sitting in the conference understand it. That's it. Okay, how to do that? First, you have to understand and read the chart. You have to group the data, you have to group the trend, you have to group this thing, that thing, this thing, that thing. You should come up with the highest and the lowest point in that. You should come up with the fluctuation followed by slightly. You have to just put this thing, and then after that, when you did that minor thing, then you talk about superlatives, which is the highest and the lowest. And after that, you talk about this. When this is ready in a rough form, you haven't started writing yet, you will just do the first sentence, which will cover each and everything without giving any number. So that's the overview, and after the overview, the introduction will be ready. So this is the reverse part, you will do it, but here I'm telling you the word which you're going to use it when every that step is being done. Okay, you understand? Yes. Okay, so now the chart illustrates the percentage of the people using different means of transport in London and Sydney. The pie chart illustrates how many journeys people have made tube, car, train this year. Okay, illustrate how many these things are. So the percentage of the people. So this particular word, the percentage, how many people. The map illustrate the development. The map illustrate how this thing, that thing done. The diagram illustrate the process. Okay, the diagram show how the paper is made. The chart examines. So now this is another word for you. The first is illustrate, and then here examine. The chart examine the level of obesity. So whenever there is something academic, something research oriented, it's better to put examines the word. The chart examine how many people are overweight, and the chart provides information on. So basically, let's say it's talking about some oil reserve and production in 5 countries. So in that case, you can put the chart provides information on. The tables gives us information about. So you can talk about the countries which gives information about. So we start with illustrates. We start with now have that our we got about examine. The chart examines whenever there is an academic and other things added, and the table gives information about. So we're going to talk about something oil reserves and all, and information in the bar chart is divided into 5 age groups divided by gender. So this is also a word you can use, divided into. So illustrates, examines, and provides information upon, and that's it. And then you have that 5 age groups. Basically the information talks about that. Okay, so that's the one. So those type of word to start the introduction. Now overview. So every IELTS task 1 report must have overview. There is this imperative, you can't miss it. And that indicate where you overview starts by using or linking the word overall. Remember that thing. Okay, so you have to indicate this. Don't use any other word. Overall. I can't say this enough. You have to understand, you have to use overall here. So the city center has undergone a major transformation. Many facilities have been improved and rebuilt. Okay, so this is the generalized word. The services sector experienced the fastest growth. By the end of the period, employed more people than other 3 sectors. Since 1980, school has undergone number of changes, with one being construction of the second building. The process consists of 5 stages, beginning the raw material and delivery of the final product. Okay, and then another word which I want to mention, which goes very well with overall, is across different sectors, across different age group, across different time. For example, the report talks about some percentage, but percentage of what? Percentage of this thing. So we can't just say that report shows percentage of this thing. No, you have to say overall. This report talks about the different area across different parts of the thing. So these type of words you have to use it. Okay, so remember, overall you have to use it, across you have to use it, and never ever do not use conclusion here. That's very important. Okay, just remember that thing. Okay, you cannot use conclusion there. Okay, let's just keep that in mind. Now let's talk about presenting the new set of data. So now we are in the data side, because see, in the overall we're not talking about data, introduction we're not talking about data, but now we start talking about data. So use linking word to move on to the new set of data, typically between the paragraph. Okay, so for example, you can start in terms of entertainment. So you can start sentence by this word. In terms of entertainment, a student spends more time in 10%. So you can start the word in terms of. You can start the paragraph by saying with regards to spending. Okay, with regards to spending the thing, you have to understand this. Okay, with regards to spending you have to talk. And then in the period of in the period given to the this one, students spend most eating out. Okay, again, as far as the entertainment is concerned. Okay, so that you have to keep in mind. As far as the word you can use in the period given, you can use with regards to, or you can use with in terms of entertainment, with regards to spending on, in the period given, in the time period given. You can start the sentence with that, or as far as the entertainment concerned, you can use the sentence there. Okay, now 6 ways to make comparison here. In IELTS academic writing task 1, many comparisons were relevant. Use different ways to compare the data in your report and demonstrate you can use vocabulary flexibly. So this is what they say. Okay, so now here we are going to do the comparison. Okay, so comparison is very important, because that's what the requirement of task 1 is. So more, less, fewer, you know this thing. So you have to I'm going to tell about this thing. So let's talk about an example. That's how we're going to remember it more. 30% fewer females choose engineering degree. Among students of engineering degree, there are almost 30% females than males. Male comprises a significant higher percentage of all the engineering students. Okay, so male comprises a significant higher percentage, and almost students of engineering degree, there are almost 30% fewer female, or male are twice as many males females described in the engineering at the university. Okay, so you can either use significant higher percentage of all engineering students, and then you can also use males, twice as many males as female decides to study engineering. So that is how you can use in different form, more or less. Use fewer with countable nouns, okay, and less with uncountable noun. This is the very important part, okay, don't make mistake. Fewer, less, okay. Fewer, for example, you can use with the woman, which is we can for example women, okay. You can talk about hobbies, changes, okay. But water, you can't count water, you can't count time, money, less, growth. Okay, so remember these things, you can't count that thing, so just keep that in mind, okay. So that's it. So and then the most, the least, how to use most and how to use the least. The most popular university remains this one, okay. And the improvement of the southeast country, the least noticeable, this one. So you can use this one, the least noticeable is this, the most common form of transport is this. So there's a common word, I think, which we all are aware about. And to differ or different or different, so let's see, sometimes you same word different form, you can use it in a different era, different sheets, okay. The difference in the number of the male and the female students of university remains insignificant, okay. It could be very small difference, but they are just making some significant difference. Subject choice preference for male and female students will differ substantially, okay. Male female students prefer to study different subjects, okay. And male students differ from female in that they are more likely to choose STEM subjects at the university. The grouping similar data, so both equally, okay. So at university, business degrees are popular among both male and female students, okay. So grouping the similar data, university business degrees are popular among both male and female students, okay. That's it. And at university, business degree are equally popular among male and female students, okay. The percentage of male and female students choosing degrees and are similar. So it could be similar, it could be equally popular, it could be both male and female students are doing. So you can use similar data by both equally. So for example, if you find 2-3 groups of same, so don't use same there, use both. Like for example, at university, business degree is popular among both male and female students. At university, both degrees are equally popular among the male and the female, and the percentage of male and female students choosing the business degrees for universities are similar. Similar percentage of male female students choose business degree at the university. So just remember that, okay. The percentage of female students choosing the business degree at the university is almost the same as that of the peer. See, almost same as that. So similar data you have used how to do that. Okay, so that's done. And then now we talk about the linking words. So for example, comparison between the sentence, and this is something which is quite tricky. So just keep that in mind for how to do that. So linking words, basically although. After although you don't put comma, but after however you do the comma, just remember that, okay. Although fewer females study engineering at university, the percentage is growing steadily, okay. So the thing is, in between the sentence, okay, we are saying that, okay, although the females are studying engineering at university, but the percentage is growing. And then when you are writing in task 1, when you maintain this sentence, you have to then, after that, you have to share the data also, okay. And then how to mention it, I'll tell you later, but these words are just to mention it, okay. So the writing part, you start going to write like this only, okay. So you start mentioning about this thing and that thing, and finally when you completed doing this, you're going to check each and everything, that you haven't repeated any structure, any sentences before, you haven't done any repetition on that, and then you ensure that all the parts has been covered, okay. That is what you have to keep in mind. So while fewer females have studied engineering universities growing steadily, whereas you have to use, so more students are drawn to the STEM subjects, whereas, or you can say why female students are more likely to choose the social science. Unlike males who are drawn to STEM subjects, female students are more likely to choose the social science. That's what, remember. Compared to girls, boys spend more time playing computer games. So that's compared to. We can start with compared to. You can start with although. Okay, you can start sentence with while females are like that. Okay, but whereas you can use in the center. Okay, so for comparing the sentence. Okay, and if you talk about however is something which is used between the sentence. So after full stop, you can say between the sentence means after the full stop. Okay, after the full stop. Okay, so however fewer females study engineering university, however, comma, the percentage growing steadily. Meanwhile, many students are drawn to STEM subjects. Female students, meanwhile, are more likely to choose social science. One of the most popular subjects among the male students in business management. Okay, similarly, is one of the top choice for the female students. Okay, so that's how you're going to do that thing. Okay, that's clear, and you have it for in comparison. So, one sentence you completed, over 20% of the male students come to STEM subjects. Full stop. In comparison, comma, fewer than 10% of the female do so. Okay, so in comparison also you have used it here. Okay, in contrast, then you will use it. Okay, so over 20% of all the male students choose STEM subjects. In contrast, comma, fewer than 10% of the female students do so. Okay, that's the thing. Okay, so in between the sentence is different. Okay, and then you have within the sentence is different, between the sentence is different. Okay, and between the sentence you can use however, and within the sentence you can use although. Okay, you can use although, you can use while, whereas. Okay, compared to girls, you can use, these are the words for within the sentence. Our sentence, meanwhile, you can use similarly, in comparison, in contrast. In contrast is quite common, remember. Okay, so that's you have to remember this thing. Okay, in comparison you can use those things. Okay, like that. So now let's focus on age group. So a different age group, across the age group, the youngest age group, older age group, level of participation in the sports by the age range, 25 to 35 age group. So age group is also common word. Okay, you can use a time period. At the start of the period you can talk about, at the end of the period you can talk about. These phrases you can use it in the final years, you can talk about in the summer months, in the first second half of the year, first second third fourth quarter of the year. The first quarter is basically January, February, March. You should be aware about these things. Okay, so this is how the time period you can mention. Okay, final year, summer month, first second half. Okay, a 10-year period, first year period, 3 months. Okay, there could be some decade you can talk about. Okay, so just remember that. Okay, like this. Okay, that's how you're going to do that. And then after that you have describing parts or the whole. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. Is, for example, there are some times they have there these verbs cause a lot of mistakes in IELTS takers. Make sure you know the difference between them. Okay, so there are verbs. Okay, so there are verbs which are used, for example, let me just tell you, to make up, to consist of, to comprise, to constitute, to compose. Okay, so these words make a lot of mistakes. So basically when we are doing a report, all part of a whole we understand. So for example, the whole as a subject, the part as a subject. For example, the USA is made up of 50 states. Okay, the USA consists of 50 states. The USA comprises 50 states. Okay, so how to use consist of, how to use made up of. Okay, how to use, okay, composed of. Remember one thing. Okay, so compose of, consist of, of. Okay, that's what you have to understand. Okay, this thing. So USA is composed of 50 states. USA comprises of 50 states. Okay, and then US, and then you can say 50 states make up USA, 50 states constitute USA, 50 states compose the USA. Okay, but this first part is little bit easier for you to write it. Okay, and then you can do it. For example, consist of, so USA consists of 50 states, India consists of 20 states, Australia consists of this thing. Okay, and Australia is made up of this thing. So houses is made up of bricks, okay, and house composed of this one. So house is, the USA is, okay, the house is made up of, the USA is consist of, you can't say that the USA consists of, house is consist of, no, house consist of, okay, but is made up of. So that, just remember these things. So you are using is, you are using is here, so just keep an eye on those things, okay, just remember this thing, okay, don't forget, okay. So people under the age of 40 constitute majority of the labor force, okay. So constitute, there is no is, okay. So whenever you're using consist of, okay, comprises of, you can use this, but composed of, yes, you can use it, okay. So that's the thing you have to remember, okay. Using the verb to make up, to consist, to comprise, to constitute, to compose, you must name all the part of the whole, okay. Just remember, to compose this one, you have to name all the parts which is it made up of, okay. For example, North America consists of USA, Canada, Mexico. There are only 3 countries in North America. You can't say, okay, Asia consists of China, Russia, Kazakhstan, because there are other countries in Asia. So verbs used when you are reporting some but not all parts, okay. Remember, okay. So North America consists of means only 3 countries are there. The first is Canada, second first is US, Canada, and then Mexico. No other country, okay. There are only 3 countries there, remember, okay. But in Asia there are other countries, so just remember that thing, okay. So don't forget that, okay. Just keep that in mind. So now you understand that, okay. So for example, North Asia includes China, Russia, okay. You can say Asia include China, Russia, Kazakhstan, because it also includes other countries. You can't say North America includes USA, because there are other 3 countries also in North America. No, that's the reason, okay. So just remember this thing, that North America consists of, Asia includes China, Russia, Kazakhstan, that is correct, and North America consists of this and this, that is correct, okay. Just remember, that is mine. To contain, so basically concrete contains water, sand, gravel. It contains other ingredients here, so it contains basically, so remember that, okay, that you can use it. And you can talk about, so now you understood this important part, that Asia includes this thing, and North America consists of US, Canada, Mexico, and Asia includes China, Russia, Kazakhstan, because they include other countries also. So we can say include. For example, body includes hand, eyes, and ears. Okay, this is the thing. Okay, that's because body include. But for example, skin consists of epidermis, dermis, and all, because there is no other part. But in body there are other part. So whenever there is other things also there, that we call includes. Okay, just remember, so mention this thing very logically, very connectedly. So okay, so that's how you have completed the different parts of the whole. You have completed time period, age groups, done. We have used some linking words also to link different things, differ, and then the comparison between the sentence, although however we have talked about already, and this thing. So now I'll go very fast for the upcoming things, and we finish it quickly, okay. So let's talk about this one, describing the forecast. So describing the forecast, we will say to be, expected to be, forecast to be, predict to be, and plan to be, okay. So for example, let's talk about in a future moment, okay, and then by particular. So something is going to happen in future, then how you going to use a simple tense in, okay. So if there's a for future simple tense, like for example, in 50 years a quarter of all the energy will be generated by the renewable sources. So it is the forecast that 50 years or the quarter of energy will be generated from the renewable sources. If you remember, there was a question with a pie chart of that particular year 2050. So in 50 years, okay, so in 50 years a quarter of all the energy will be generated from renewable sources of energy. It is forecast that in 50 years a quarter of all the energy will be generated from renewable sources of energy. In 50 years a quarter of all the energy is forecast to be generated from renewable source of energy. So starting the sentence from in 50 years gives you a very good complex structure to follow, okay, and you can use it in future, okay. So in forecast to be generated from the renewable sources of energy. By a future moment, use a future perfect tense. For example, use a future perfect tense by, okay, and then you can start the sentence by saying by 2040 a third runway will have been constructed. So by 2040 a third runway will have been constructed at the Heathrow airport. Okay, Heathrow airport. It is expected that the third runway will have been constructed at the Heathrow airport by 2040. Again, by, so by is basically a future moment. Okay, future moment. The second runway is planned to be constructed at the lower local airport. Okay, so that's how. So basically this you can use for the structure for the maps, and also you can talk about this grammatical structure when you're talking about, for example, by 2026 I would have been a social worker. I would have been a social worker by 2026. I would have been social worker. But for example, you can say, in 1 year, I must have I might have completed my placement. Okay, from now. So that's a continuous process. You are doing it. You don't know the start and the end point. But for the future moment, which for example something for sure will be completed, you can use by for that. Okay, so that's it. And then we have the next part, for example, essential words for describing a trend. Okay, so let's talk about that. So we are going to talk about some inquiries. In this section we'll find some group of verbs, adverbs, and or adjectives as nouns. Basically they will talk about increase. So remember, we have to memorize this course combination, and which we can use in different English, and we know that this is not an exhaustive list, but this is sufficient to get our 7 or 8 bands. So that's what our target is. So for example, if we talk about a small change, for example, you can say there is some growth, rise, increase, climb. You can talk about, you can just say that to grow, and there's a small change, you can say slowly. Okay, slowly increase, slightly increase, gradual increase, moderately climb. Okay, modestly. Okay, like that. If there is a noticeable change, you can say there is a fast change, quickly, rapidly, considerably, significantly, you can say. If there is a big and sudden change, you can talk about dramatically, drastically. Okay, so remember this thing. So small, as, slowly, slightly, gradually, moderately, modestly. Noticeable, fast, quickly, rapidly, considerably. Big, dramatically, drastically. Just remember that. Okay, just remember. So based on that, you can do this small changes. You can talk about this, and then you can talk about this particularly. Okay, so with this you can talk a different thing, situation, small, noticeable, big, and you can address accordingly. So some examples for you: student numbers in UK University grow slightly from this to just over this one. The number of international students increased considerably, almost 20%. So when you say 20%, it's not slightly, it's considerably. Okay, the portion of Chinese students rose sharply from 20% to 30%. Okay, sharply. Okay, student increase dramatically, rocketed, jumped on this one. So when like that, you can talk about this. Okay, so for adjective and nouns, how we can use it? So similarly, small change, you can just talk about growth, rise, increase, climb. Noticeable, again, fast, quick, rapid, considerable, significant, like that. Big, dramatic, drastic, sleep. Okay, jump, you can't say anything, you can just use request. Okay, so like that. Okay, and then the verb to use, so to demonstrate experience, you can say increase, to be on the rise, growth. Okay, so let me give you the example, that will help you more in remembering the things. In 2017, figures were just above 210,000, a significant increase of 28% on the previous year. So we say significant increase. A rapid growth can partly be explained by the dramatic increase. So first there's a there was a slow growth, and then there was a rapid growth, and then followed by the dramatic increase. Okay, the figure demonstrated modest climb, 3% on the previous year. So that's the thing. And there was a substantial rise in the student numbers from the youth. Though there was a substantial rise. Okay, so remember that thing. Okay, and now you have the to describe the decline. So in that particular case, now it's time for us to learn the words that describe the decline. So we have covered the the increase. Okay, we have covered the increase part here. Okay, and now we are going to cover the decline part. Okay, so decline part we're going to talk about is now here that again make sure that you memorize the word points. Of course it's not an exhaustive list, but it's going to help it. Okay, again you are not much in, and we just say a couple of minutes here. That small change, noticeable change, big same, big is always dramatic, drastic, small quickly, rapidly, substantially, considerably, and small is moderately, slightly, slowly, gradually. That's what you're going to do. Talk about example again. In the 1970s, the population of the town decreased considerably. Okay, the profit has fallen dramatically, which is higher. Over the 10-year period, the number of car thefts dropped rapidly. Okay, and the new lower under 1,000 crimes. Okay, after years of expansion, the Indian output plummeted in 2010. Okay, so that's the thing. Okay, and now we talk about now. So again, a dramatic sharp decline for the big sudden change. Noticeable change is considerable, significant, substantial. Small change, slight and gradual. So just revise some words which we already know. Although is for between the sentence, there is no comma in that. However, is like is between two different sentences. However, which for is all normally comes after full stop, and you have to put comma after however. And remember one thing: includes is something when there's additional things are there. Okay, consist of is for sure you have this thing. So includes, consist of. Remember this thing. You remember considerable, significant. Right, is for the noticeable change, but not too much. But if there is a big change, okay, then you use dramatic or drastic, and the small change is slightly gradual. Both for increase, decrease, it is same. So just remember this thing. You are ready to go. Then the decline occurred, to experience a decline, to demonstrate. Okay, so decline occurred, the experience a decline. Okay, fall into, go decline. Okay, so reduction occurred, took place. Okay, to achieve, reduction occurred, reduction took place, to achieve or make a reduction. So these words are complemented by, or they are accompanied by different words. Okay, a decline occurred, began, to experience a decline, demonstrate, display. Okay, most of the decline occurred 1970. The town fell into decline after factory close. There has been a gradual decline. There has been a sharp decrease. This figure shows a decrease. The chart demonstrates the reduction for the newly 40%. So again, let me revise something. So there are some verb which use along with additional noun. So a decline occurred. Okay, so let me just send a sentence. Most of the decline occurred in 1970. The town fell into the decline after the factory closes. Okay, there has been a gradual decline in the population, which now stands at just over 150 million. There has been a sharp decrease in the population since in 2010. This year figure shows decrease of 20% in last year. The chart demonstrates a reduction of nearly 40% in the number of tourists visiting the town. Okay, just remember that. Okay, now we reach highest and the lowest point. So let's talk about the highest and the lowest point. Okay, so the highest point and the lowest, so the peak of, peak at, to peak at, to reach the highest point. Okay, lowest of, low of, reach of. So these are sometimes the points. So sentences, just focus on the sentence which will help you in remembering. Production reaches the lowest point at this one, and a peak of this one in 2010. There has been peaks and troughs in the long. So troughs are basically used for, you can say, a flat. Okay, there in long term in trend of unemployment. In 2018, the Turkish euro fell to all-time low against the dollar. In London, traffic reaches its peak between 8 and 9 in the morning. So that's the explanation. Okay, so now talk about the fluctuation and the stabilizing factor. So here, to fluctuate, we can talk about again the small and there are large. Okay, so to fluctuate we will say slightly, moderately, considerably, dramatically. So again, slightly is for our small, considerably, and then dramatically. So slightly, moderately, considerably comes here, and then dramatically comes here. So remember that. Okay, and then we have stabilize, for example, they're fairly, relatively. Okay, to remain unchanged, to remain steady, to remain stable, they will say fairly. Relatively, there is slight change. There fairly, there's a small minor change. Okay, so to be unstable, and then there's no ever required. So let me talk about the examples again. Between 2010 to 2015, all prices fluctuated significantly between this much to this much. The rate inflation has been fluctuating around 4%. Okay, same time sometimes. So this is very important word, because see, the things are changing, that's why they are showing you. And you're just talking about fluctuating. Okay, fluctuating is not analysis. Fluctuating is just describing the pattern. So right word to use is not analysis. Remember this thing. Okay, and that's what you have to remember. Okay, unemployment leveled off at 500,000 in 2005 and stayed at the level of 5 years. Okay, unemployment leveled off at 500,000 and stayed at that level. So that's how you have to use it. Leveled off, stayed at, fluctuated significantly, fluctuated around, sometime, rate of inflation. Okay, and then relatively stable at this around 20%, and like that. Okay, so just remember that thing. Okay, so based on that you have to talk about this thing. Okay, so relatively stable at around 20%. Okay, so now let's talk about describing a trend. So, and there's an upward trend, there is a downward trend. Okay, downward trend or trend is downward or a pattern. Okay, that's how you can do it. So the chart shows upward trend in the rate of employment. In London, 50% community use public transport 2005 and the trend upwards. So you give the information and the trend upwards, you can mention it. Okay, and then after that the trend downward, you can trend generally goes downwards. The figures show that as far as the car theft is concerned, the main trend is downward. So you can do is that at the end you can mention the pattern differs for boys and the girls. The pattern for France is similar. The pattern differ or pattern similar. Okay, so just that's how you're going to mention the trend. So in the trend we talk about there is an upward trend, there is a downward trend. You can use between the sentence that chart shows upward trend, and then you can use at the end, like for example in London around 50% of the commuter use public transport, and then if the graph shows down you can say the trend upwards, and if it is down you can say the trend is downwards. In the same way there is a pattern, the pattern differ for the boys and the girls, or the pattern is the same. So you can use the same thing when you are mentioning for the boys and the girls part. Okay, so now let's talk about the right figures and how to talk about the figures, because that is what task 1 is for. You have to give figures. Without figure it is not going to work. You have to mention figures. Okay, so in this chapter you will learn different ways presenting the figures in your report. Make sure that it support description, body, paragraph in the figure. Now, writing the numbers here you have to remember writing the numbers correctly is very important. Okay, spell out the numbers under 10. So if it is under 10, better to write the spelling of the numbers. Okay, so you spell out, that's what you have to do it. Okay, so 1 in the 5 hour span in social media process consists of 5 main stage. Okay, that is one. Okay, you can also use hyphenated all compound numbers from 21 to 99. So 21, 99, better use hyphenated word. Okay, hyphenated word you can clearly see is this one. Okay, hyphenated word. Okay, just use hyphen there. Okay, that's just important. Okay, and then after that you are talking about, let's say, spell out the numbers between 100 to this one. So for example, if it is 100, you can say 100, 300, 200,000. So if there is 200,000, spell out those numbers. Okay, if there's 55, hyphenated with spelling out the number. So that is very very important. Okay, so you are using hyphenated and then you are using the spelling out number both together. Okay, let's remember, do not spell out the large number. That is also another thing. Okay, do not spell out. 1 million is fine, 2 million is fine, 2.7 million is fine. Okay, just remember that. Okay, and then now we move to 3 ways to present the data. So now we are going to talk about different ways to present the data. We have covered other part already. You can see that we have covered a lot of part, clearly it's visible. Okay, and then now we are in that 3 ways to present the data. Okay, so here we're going to talk about percentage, proportion, and fractions. That's also very important, and all these formats shows that you can use vocabulary flexibly. So that's what we have to demonstrate. Note the spelling. The percent and percent is different for the British and non. So for this one, British 10% have a space there. Socializing account is about 20% of the leisure time. So you can use space between per and cent here because we are giving the British exam, that's why. Okay, and Australia also depends on the British exams, okay, respectively, in the same order as the people or the things already mentioned. Okay, the expenditure on the food was significantly higher than that in the books. Okay, the expenditure of food is significantly higher than the books. Okay, so 30%. So now proportion, how to mention the proportion? So one worker out of the 33% is out of the 3, 20% is out of 5, 40% is 2 out of 5. Remember, okay, 40% is 2 out of 5. This is quite tricky. Okay, so remember to say this thing in the proportion. Okay, and then 3 teenagers out of 5 exercise regularly. In comparison, only 1 adult in 5 do it. Okay, so this is how you have to talk about there's percentage. Okay, and similarly, if you talk about the spend like for example, if respectively word, you can use it when the same order as the other people which already mentioned, like that. So the order is respectively, the things is respectively. Okay, you know it very well. 80% a large proportion of significant majority, 50% is small minority, we can use it. Okay, and 3% is insignificant minority. So small minority 15%, 3% is you can say insignificant. Okay, and 15% is small minority. Okay, and 80% is a large proportion significant, this one. So remember this. Okay, so this is just to give you an idea how to mention this thing. And 40% is like this one. Okay, the largest proportion of the time is spent playing computers. Okay, so by male, you can say greatest percentage of young people are interested in the sport. Okay, that's how you're going to mention it. Now hyphenated words is you can use it for 1/4, 1/3. This one, these are hyphenated word. And sometimes, for 25, 20 things, these are also hyphenated word. According to the bar chart, the third students of leisure time spent watching this one. So 1/3 of the students leisure time spent watching TV, a half of the teenagers, and 1/4 of the adults. So this is, you are good in that, you can just use it accordingly. Okay, now rounding in numbers is, for example, reporting the figures accurately. Make it clear when you are round number. For example, 48%, 26%, 50%, almost, just under 50%, around, approximately 50%, just over, around, approximately 25%, exact half is 50%. So these are the words which is very very important. Okay, exact half, just over, almost, around, approximately 50%, 50%, this one. So just remember these words, these are very 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 important. Okay, exactly, almost, okay, approximately, these were, just keep an eye on those words. Okay, just over, quarter, okay, manufacturing or pp, then approximately $5 million. Okay, approximately, these are the words which will give 8 band to you. Just keep an eye on that. Okay, you can't make mistakes on that. Okay, so just keep that thing. And of course, as I mentioned to you, hyphenated also, don't make a mistake over that. Okay, so now here you're coming in once, twice, thrice times. So this is very simple. So you can just clearly say consumer spent twice as much as paying the rent as buying the food. Okay, consumer expenditure on food is 3 times higher than that on books. 3 times as much money spent on the food as the books. Figure of renting almost accommodation is 6 times higher than that of buying the books. Okay, so that's how you can clearly see this thing here. This is 6 times of this, this is 3 times of this. Okay, this is 2 times of that. Okay, this is 3 times, this is 6 times, this is 2 times. So based on that, you can mention these things. Okay, so just keep an eye on that. Okay, and then let's go further up. Okay, 2 half, 2 double. Okay, 2 triple. Okay, 2 half is to reduce by half, 2 double is written 12, and then 2 triple. Okay, the company shares how halved in the value. Okay, the income doubled, then they tripled. Okay, reduced by half, become twice as money. Okay, to become, make something, okay, 3 times much more money. So remember this thing. So we have to understand. So the company share is half the value. With 1970, income doubled. The figure is more triple at 67%. So just remember that. Okay, describing a map Okay, so you can talk about in this. So basically in the map, you remember, see that maps questions are rare, but they do come. Okay, so just keep them in mind. In this chapter you're going to do the vocabulary which is less common task mask. Okay, so reporting time is very important in 1930. Okay, so it is basically past simple tense. In 1990 city reached 1 million inhabitant. The city was twice that of 1970 by 1990. Okay, past perfect tense means in 1990 the city has doubled in size. The population city had reached 1 million by 1970. Okay, like that. So perfect tense means we are sure this thing happen. And for example, talk about currently or now. So recently the city borders have been extended to include Greenfield village as one of the its suburb. Okay, today the airport consists of 4 terminals, both and then 2 runway. Okay, so present simple, present perfect tense. In 2030, which is a future simple tense, in 2030 the new railway station will be located in the center of the emerging business district. By 2030 a new railway station will have been built. Okay, so by will have been built, in 2030 will be located, by will have been built to serve the commuters in the business district. Okay, like that. So by means will have been, by is will have been. So whenever you are mentioning by, it's always accompanied by will have been. Okay, remember. Okay, this is the thing you have to remember it. Okay, yeah. And then you will mention by that. Okay, and then you have a different compass to talk about. Okay, so writing compass points, there's northeast, east, you know everything. Do not capitalize, remember one thing, do not capitalize compass points when using them in describing the map. The park located in the west of that and has doubled in size by 2010. The office built in the north of the main block. Okay, located to the south, north, located to the south, to the west. The western side of the island remain uninhabited. Western side uninhabited. Okay, common map elements: a road, motorway, small, converted into main road, roads converted to the center part. So that's the common element of the map. That's it. It's not common question, so don't spend much time on it. But let's give some seconds in the structure for the sentence. A stretch of the road, a new stretch of the road, the road runs through it. Okay, so road runs through it, new stretch. Okay, just remember that. So to extend the road, to connect with, the main road is extended to connect with, the crossing the city. Okay, from north to south. Okay, infrastructure, the basic system and services that is necessary for the country or the organization to run smoothly. Transport, water, power supply. The city infrastructure has been significantly improved. The city's infrastructure has been significantly improved. The uh, building services, equipment that are provided by particular purpose. Okay, that's particular purpose. Okay, and by 2010 the city infrastructure had been. Okay, so has been, had been. Okay, you can use it. Okay, been significantly improved. And facilities, like building services, equipment that has been provided for a particular purpose, sport facilities, leisure facilities, shopping, conference facilities that will be provided. The town center has been expanded in recent years and today offer a wide range of facilities. Okay, today offer a wide range of facilities. Amenities, a feature that makes a paper that makes a place comfortable, easy to live in. The hotel has excellent amenities. So hotel has excellent amenities. A feature that makes place comfortable, okay, and easy to live in is amenities. Development, a piece of the land with new buildings on it. So you can say commercial development, business development. So these you can use it. Amenities, you can use it. The hotel has excellent amenities. You can use the word like that. You can talk about facilities, basically sport facilities, leisure facilities. You can use the word there. So I'm talking about some word infrastructure. So there are infrastructure like facilities, amenities, development, like that. Okay, so you can use the words like that. Okay, so now There are more words, for example, housing estate development. We're talking about residential area, we got leisure center, okay, we got recreation ground, pedestrian area. So these word is also important for speaking, for writing tasks too, and different words. Industrial estate, talking about business park. We're talking about a warehouse, we're talking about a farmland, a woodland, okay, woodland, a green area, river bank, sea coast, lake shore, harbor, marina, pier, multi-story building, swimming pool, town hall, fire station, public, university, university campus. These are the words which you can use. It. Pier is basically long structure of built in the sea, joined to the land at one end, and the new pier will be built in middle of the beach. Okay, so this is pier. Basically in Dubai you will see a lot of pier built in that area. And then hall of residence, student accommodation, science block. So these are the words which will be used in the maps and structures, and then you can use those structures and words in your speech or task 2 or report. And then our speaking exam also. Okay, a suburb, outskirts, neighborhood. Okay, describing a location, the area where people live, that is outside the center of the city, that's a suburb. The part of the town city that is furthest from the center. After construction of the business center, the surrounding neighborhood was transformed. Okay, surrounding neighborhood was transformed. Urban, connected with the town or city. Okay, urban areas basically rural, connected with the countryside. So rural is like, for example, countryside or connected with the countryside. Urban is basically town or city. Okay, urban areas, urban development. Rural areas, nearby means for the vicinity, proximity to the industrial zone was built in close proximity to the airport. Adjacent to, just next to, near or something. Okay, so area around is vicinity, and next to that is basically a just this one, adjacent to, and then you have alongside. Okay, so alongside is basically you can use it, furthest development of city continued alongside the motorway. Okay, so alongside the motorway is like, for example, further development in the city continues alongside the motorway, you can use it. Okay, and then adjacent to the next building, you can say wall to wall, adjacent to the mall. For the small area, there are the row of house immediately adjacent to the railway station. The further development of the city continues alongside the motorway. Industrial zone can be built in close proximity to the airport. Okay, so that's why. So nearby, vicinity of, proximity of. Okay, that's a little bit, let's imagine the size of airport. For the size of the airport, you can talk about nearby, vicinity. Okay, talk about proximity too. Okay, you can talk about adjacent to when you're talking about next to the for example, small building. Okay, mall or like that. Alongside will be, for example, motorway. Okay, the motorway, there's a large development of what's going on, so that's alongside, you can use that word there. Okay, and then these are some words you can use it there. Okay, and then you have now the words for describing the changes. Okay, so for describing the changes, you can talk about transformation. So you can use transform. In recent year, the city has undergone a complete transformation. Over the last year, experienced a rapid development. To construct a new school, there has been plans to construct the new school. Okay, that will replace the car park. To erect, you can say recently erected business center. To develop, to set up, to open, to turn into. A farmland was turned into park. Okay, to convert into, old farmhouse was converted into flats. Renovate, modernize, redevelopment, business district has been completely redeveloped. Okay, to relocate. Okay, industrial area adjacent to the railway station was demolished and relocated to the suburb. Remember one thing, so relocated, replaced. A new business park completely replaced the park. Destroy, demolish. The old farmhouse has been demolished. The whole farmhouse has been demolished. And you can the extent, make something larger, longer, wider. There are plans to extend the no smoking area. A school building has been extended. To expand, to make something greater in size, number, importance. The local airport will have been expanded by 2030. The local airport will have been expanded by 2030. Okay, to clear the trees, forest, to chop the trees down, to plant the new trees, cross, pass through, run through. The road is running through the city. pedestrianized. Okay, so remember these words. Okay, now you're talking about describing the diagram. Okay, so in this chapter we'll find the vocabulary for the least common task diagram. So we will not spend much time in that. Simple diagram illustrate the way which this paper can be made in the home from old newspaper. Diagram again illustrates. Diagram shows the process of paper production use. The diagram illustrates the cycle of the carbon. The diagram describes the process in which the carbon travels from atmosphere, okay, earth to back to that. So for this overview, remember you have to start by saying the word the process and the cycle. Okay, so you have to start by saying this, and then consist of stages. How many stages you have to mention? You just have to mention how many stages. Okay, you have to talk about beginning with this, and then you can just talk about ending with this one. Okay, so remember this. So beginning and then ending. Yeah, listen, overall the process consists of 5 stage, beginning with the raw material and then ending with the delivery. Overall carbon cycle consists of 6 stage, beginning and ending in the carbon dioxide. 5 stage is starting with cow grazing on this and ending with the dairy production. To go pass through the stage, overall the egg goes through 4 stages before becoming the butterfly. It use the process of making, assist the process of making. These are some phrases which I just want to tell you. Again, it's very rare, that's why we're not going to talk much about it. Okay, again there are some tools. A tool, the process of making ink requires number of tools. Only one tool is required. Okay, so to combine, to pack, to mix, break up into smaller pieces. An ice cutter is being used to break up into the small pieces. Okay, the ice cutter is used to break up ice into small pieces. The material sized into 20 millimeter cubes. Okay, and to go through the break is to go through a heating and the cooling process. So remember this thing. Okay, to transfer to put into, to undergo into. Okay, at the next stage the mixture is put into the heating machine where it undergoes the heat treatment. Okay, pack, deliver, the bricks are packed and delivered into the destination. Basic component, raw material, ingredients, mixture. The sands accounts for 25% of the material used to produce the concrete. The sand accounts for 25% of the material produced to material used to produce concrete. Okay, like that. To consist of, the concrete consists of 3 basic components: water, aggregate and cement. To make up, aggregate make up as much as 60 to 80% of the typical concrete mix. Okay, so it's make up as much as 60% or 80%. Okay, to make up would consist of 3 basic so consists, as I remember, as I told you, it consists of means only these 3 elements are present, but if you say includes means there are other elements also present which are not mentioned here. So the concrete consists of basic component, water, aggregate and cement. It means it only have these 3 components, not more than that. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so now talking about some linking words. To begin, in the first stage of making handmade powder, old newspapers are shredded into the small square pieces and put into the bowl with hot water. While the paper is soaking, mold made up of the screen. Okay, so while, and then you have next. Okay, the next stage involves include. So the next, soaked paper was placed in the mixing bowl, half filled with water, and until it becomes the smooth pulp. Following this, the pulp is poured into the tub. Okay, after the pulp has been distributed evenly to make the sheet of paper, the frame is taken out of the tub. Okay, when the pulp is dry, the paper is turned upside down to clean the frame. And finally, the final stage, the paper is flattened by ironing in firmly. Okay, the paper is flattened by ironing firmly. Okay, like that. And then we have it, the different situations to answer the thing. So we have already talked about the different, for example, to make up aggregate, the aggregate make up 60 to 80% of the typical concrete mix. Okay, that we have talked about already. We have talked about the different stages of diagram. For example, the writing process, the writing and overview. The process cycle consists of start, beginning and then ending with this thing, so you have to mention that. Okay, and you have covered majorly everything, then of course the chances are very less here. So let's just move to the other part of writing. Task one is basically where to start. So we are just revising the same thing, okay? Some words. So for example, if you're talking about an overview, you have to, very important thing, you have to mention overall, okay? Overall, almost all the water in the earth resides in the ocean. Now when there is a contrasting data in that particular case, for example, like while in Brazil, USA produce mainly oranges, while in China favors tangerine, whereas in city, crime was least popular of the four genres, and whereas romance novels are the least liked in US. Conversely, there are not enough potatoes in this year, while tomatoes conversely are the substantial surplus. Okay, so you see how the comma is used. Can you see that? So here they used the comma, they use comma, while tomatoes, there is not enough potato this year, comma, while tomatoes again comma, conversely are in substantial plus. So that's how they have used it. Okay, now we are talking about presenting the differences. So for example, so we talked about contrasting data, basically while, whereas, and conversely. For you can contrast saying that Brazil and USA produce mainly oranges, comma, while China favors tangerine. So that's how it goes. Okay, whereas in Canada, crime is the least popular of the fourth genre, while romance novels were the least liked in UK. Okay, conversely, there are not enough potato this year, while tomatoes conversely are substantial surplus. Okay, remember that thing. Now we're talking about presenting differences here. So to compare, you and to contrary, or however, and nevertheless, and although, so these are some word which we have to use it, and that's how, without this, forget about any band. Okay, so you have to use this word, presenting differences. So to compare, the largest resources of waters are concentrated in South America and Asia. To compare the resources of other country, to compare, and how to use it, you have to put the full stop before and comma after that. When you are presenting the difference, to compare the resource from other countries, it at least twice smaller than those of South America. So that's how we are comparing the data, and we are giving that data also by seeing the chart, diagram, and whatever things. On the contrary, the services sector experiences the fastest growth. Fewer people worked manufacturing in 2010 than that did in 1910. Okay, the service sector explained the fastest growth. On the contrary, comma, fewer people worked in manufacturing in 2010 than they did in 1910. Okay, however, by far the largest number of migrants lived in USA. It was UK, however, that showed the highest rate of growth. Okay, so it was UK, comma, however, comma, that showed the highest growth. Okay, by far, comma, largest number of migrants lived in USA, full stop. It was UK, comma, however. So however, there is always comma before however, or full stop before however, but however is always followed by comma. Okay, there's no change in the airport security, comma, passport control, customs, full stop. Several shops, however, will be opened in the departure zone. Okay, so again we use however, because these are somehow, it is not following the same pattern of the sentence what it was mentioned before, like that. Okay, nevertheless, tourism grew fastest rate throughout the period. Okay, so nevertheless is very much like however, you have full stop before comma. Nevertheless, manufacturing remained the largest industry. So basically it's an additional point. Tourism grew fastest rate throughout the period, but manufacturing still remained the largest industries. Okay, so just remember that thing. Now we have, although tourism grew at the fastest rate throughout the period, manufacturing remained the largest industries. Okay, so here there is no comma, no nothing. You can start the sentence with although, and we are mentioning although. It's so basically we the same sentence. If you want to put although, however, and then what you do, reverse the sentence. Simple. For example, although tourism grew at the fastest rate throughout the period, manufacturing remained the same sentence. So let me just connect those two sentences, and where you're basically you are talking about this one, that where to use although and where to use nevertheless. Okay, so same sentences but different structure. So if the same format is repeating again and you have to use nevertheless two times, better convert the nevertheless into although, put although in the before and there is no comma, put although at the starting of the sentence, and this is make the sentence similarly. Okay, like tourism grew at the fastest rate throughout the period, full stop, nevertheless manufacturing remained the largest industry. And here when you want to use although, just say although tourism grew at the fastest rate throughout the period, comma, manufacturing remained the largest industry. Okay, although Brazil and USA produce mainly orange, China favors tangerine. It's comma. Okay, it's not two different sentence, but here, however, you have to use that this one. You have to use this on the. You have to use that highest growth in this one is tangerine is for different sentences. Okay, that's how you can do it. Okay, so these are basically this task one linking words is just 3 pages long. We have completed the one page by mentioning although thing. Now we are on the second page here, which is despite. Okay, so how to use the despite word in that? So just talk about despite. So tourism grew at the fastest rate throughout the period, full stop, despite this, and then comma, something like however manufacturing remained the largest industries. Okay, remember that thing. And on the other hand, the USA witnessed the significant increase in the migrant population over the period. Again, there's a comma. On the other hand, sorry, full stop, and on the other hand, comma, both India and Russia experienced slight drop in their size of the migrant population. Across all the countries, comma, lemon produce relatively small stable. On the other hand, comma, grapefruit production very significantly. Okay. Similarly, girl enjoys using social networking websites. Similarly, comma, nearly all boys says that they spend at least 2-3 hours a week on these sites. Okay, parenting results. So this one. So well, okay. Similarly, also we use the same way, full stop and then comma. So different sentences are there for similarly, despite of, on the other hand, they, and however, nevertheless, only although you use the sentence without anything, and you can start it without following comma. Okay, remember that thing. Just to show you again here, and that's how you go with that. And on conversely, on the contrary, while these all basically followed by sorry, there is no comma in whereas and while, but in conversely, yes, you have the comma after that. Okay, that's how it is done. So now let's talk about presenting the result. So as a result, consequently, as a consequence. So for this again, you have to have comma before or full stop before and followed by comma. Remember this thing. Okay, so the service sector demonstrated a strong upward trend through the period. As a result, consequently, it has been the largest employer by 1930 and just over 10 millions. Okay, so this is how you have used it. As a result, consequently, it has been the employer by 1930 with just over 10 million a year. Okay, so adding or supporting data. So moreover, furthermore, in addition, you can use fresh water is mainly frozen, located underground. Okay, moreover, furthermore, in addition to that, the amount of fresh water accessible in the surface is distributed unevenly across the continent. Okay, tourism grew at the fastest rate, around 5% per year. Moreover, it has become the largest industries by 2005 when it over to agriculture. Introducing the new group of data with regards to so with regards to remaining two sectors, agriculture, energy, construction gradually shrank from providing jobs from 2.5 to 3.5 million people respectively, 1910 to under 2 million, this one. So with regards to or in regards to, you can just start the sentence by sentence. It's something like although, with regards to, in terms of entertainment, student 10% of that. So remember that thing. Okay, so that's how you can do that. And then we are on the last page of the linking word for task 1. So here in the period given student spends most eating at 10%. Okay, in the period given, comma, the students spend most eating at 10%. As far as this one concerned, as far as business trip is concerned, the number continued to rise steadily through the period. Okay, firstly, for a floor transported by trucks, silos stored there until it is used as production center. At the first stage, cold water is pumped undergone. At the next stage, okay, the hot water is pumped through production well up to the surface. In the next step, to place the noodle cup, next step at the first stage, comma, the next step, once the water is hot, is pumped back to the surface. So these are for the process, you can use it. No, the next comma, the steam directed to the turbine, then the steam then directed to the turbine, then passed through something. After that, comma, the steam rotates the turbine. Finally, this thing happens. So again, let me remind you how you're talking about the process. The next step is, okay, at the next stage, at the first stage is this one first. Okay, you can just start your process by this one first, and then you can talk about at the next stage. Okay, and then you can say next after that, and then you can talk about then. Okay, after that you can talk about this one, and then finally you can talk about this thing, and then you can mention all the stage, and then you can end the process here. So this is how you can mention the process. So talking about different stages of the process is this one. Okay, and this is what we are going to talk about in this. Anyways, chances are lesser, but still its chances are